Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today we are returning to the streets of Caldron as we look at Foundation of Flames. This was the 8th installment of the Shackled City Adventure Path. This was in Dungeon Magazine issue 113 from August of 2004. This scenario was designed for a group of 4 15th level characters, and it was expected that they would reach 16th level by the end of the scenario. This is actually one of, if not the shortest chapter of the Shackled City Adventure Path in the entirety of the magazine print runs. So this is going to be a pretty quick video because while there's not necessarily a lot to talk about, there was still a really solid adventure at the core here. So this takes place very shortly after the events of Lord of Oblivion, where the Beholder Orbis Philanthru was defeated, and now the elven noble that he was posing as is no longer around to lead the city of Caldron. The adventure actually begins with the player characters summoned to a council involving the nobility, the surviving nobility of the city of Caldron, as well as a few other notable NPCs, as the NPCs and the players come together to try to determine who the new ruler of Caldron was going to be. This was actually a really fun role-playing section here. There was a lot of discussing, a lot of debate before the characters finally were able to come together with nobility to make a final decision. However, just as they're reaching that final decision, the peace and quiet that the players hoped they had earned is disrupted when this Darrow sorcerer teleports into the middle of this room with several of his flunkies in an attempt to assassinate the remaining rulers and to sow further chaos into the city of Caldron. This was a fun little encounter. It's a pretty short one. There wasn't a lot to it. You just had the berserkers, which were other Darrow, and this sorcerer. But again, the theme of this adventure is just when you think things have started to quiet down, another curveball gets thrown at you. So shortly after the encounter with the Darrow, the city of Caldron starts to experience tremors for the first time in centuries, millennia, as the Cagerites, the shadowy organization that's been working behind the scenes to harness the soul energy of individuals born on the prime material plane that have traces of Demodand blood in them, to open a portal between the material plane and the prison plane of Carcery, is finally almost completed. The ritual is underway, and the energies being gathered to complete this ritual are starting to tear the city of Caldron apart and to reawaken the extinct volcano that the city was built on top of. The next section of the adventure, which is sort of the largest portion of it, is essentially spent evacuating the city. So the city map is divided into 4 different sections, and the characters have to go through each section, and they have to gain a number of evacuation points by completing some objectives. So these are going to be, a lot of these are going to be skill-based. They're going to require skill checks. They're going to require some creative thinking. So these are scenarios such as having to rescue citizens from a burning building or collapsed building. There's one where I think a sinkhole opens up and the characters have to pull people out of that. There's a lava flow that people are sort of trapped, like that went around this group of citizens that the characters have to carefully tread over, find ways to get over, and rescue them. There's one of the scenarios involves a stampede of livestock that broke out of its corrals, and the characters need to sort of calm them down. There are mobs of just the citizens of Caldron that are panicking that the characters have to try to calm down and direct. There's a ton of different things to do here. So the objective is to gain 16 evacuation points in each of the 4 sections of the Caldron map. So as you can see here, it's sort of divided up into 4 different sections there, and each of these scenarios you can end up losing some of the points that you might earn from them. If, like, for example, if you're trying to rescue people from a burning building, if too many of them don't make it out, it affects the amount of evacuation points that you can get. And the idea is that you would run 2 to 3 events for each of the 4 sections of the map. And after that is done, after that the town is successfully evacuated, you have, that moment where you think everything's going to be okay now, but again, with this module, the curveball gets thrown at you because the climactic event of this adventure involves the awakening of the legendary mature adult red dragon Hookface, a figure that's sort of rumored in the region. This menacing red dragon that's terrorized the region for centuries, although he's been dormant for quite some time, finally awakes, and he now essentially decides to investigate what's going on in Cauldron, and possibly even do a little bit of looting. And the characters are confronted by this red dragon, and the adventure ends with the characters either driving off Hookface or killing Hookface, or even possibly losing one of the characters to Hookface, as if one of the characters dies, Hookface just sort of grabs the body and carries it off to his lair, strip him of his gear, and then eventually devour him. And that's it. That is Foundation of Flame. So it's, like I said, it's a shorter scenario for sure. But I think this is one that it had to be sort of a shorter scenario, because the whole point is that it's supposed to have this chaotic, frenetic pace to it. Like, this is something where you don't have time to think. You have to just react. And I think they did a really good job with that in this particular issue. So the fact that it was short actually was sort of one of the stronger points about it, because you don't want something like this being too long and dragging on. I think ideally you'd really want to try to wrap this up as best as you can within a single session. And when I actually ran the adventure, that's what we did. I started the session with the decision on who was going to become the new leader. Now, I actually didn't run the evacuations of all 4 sections of Cauldron when I was doing this. There was another NPC adventuring party that was sort of always operating in the background throughout the entire campaign, known as the Stormblades. And they were sort of like the foils to the player characters. So in the early adventures, for example, like the characters would deal with goblins, for example, underneath the city, and then but they would hear rumors of how the Stormblades defeated kobolds, sort of thing. So there was just one of the adventures actually involved. One of the rumors was the Stormblades collapsed all these tunnels that were underneath Cauldron, but then the characters needed to get to a series of ruins that was underneath Cauldron, so it actually made it more difficult. So when I ran it, the characters actually came face to face with the Stormblades, and they actually decided to finally put aside their differences and work together. Now, back in the Secrets of the Soul Pillar adventure, one of the Stormblades had been killed and was waiting to be resurrected in the Temple of Weejoss. And when I was running it, the player characters actually retrieved the body, returned it to the Stormblades so that he could be raised, and that sort of helped smooth things over. So I only ran 3 of the sections on the map, and I had the Stormblades be responsible for evacuating one of them, and I think I even had the Stormblades score. I think they needed 16, so I think they had like 8 victory points in a third section, just to make it a little bit quicker to run. I don't know if I would necessarily do that now if I were to rerun this, but at the time it seemed like the logical decision, and there were some really fun scenarios here. So you see in the center of this map, you have Crater Lake. So one of the legends, the urban legends, that had been the source of several rumors throughout the campaign, was that there was this Morkoth living in the lake, and he was this, like this lake monster that some people believed and some people didn't, and it was generally accepted that it was just a myth. But as the volcanic activity started to build, the lake itself started to rise in temperature to the point where it was really starting to boil. And at that point, the Morkoth actually emerges from the lake, scalded and just furious, and starts attacking anything nearby, which happened to be the player characters. Also, when they were going from evacuation event to evacuation event, there were several other hazards that they would come across. like a fissure opening up or a steam vent, a lava flow. So there was all these different things that they had to contend with as well, which again sort of added to the pace, because there really just wasn't much of a chance for them to rest or do anything. Another one of my favorite sections here actually had to be, see if I can find it here. There was a section where the portal, while it's not really open yet, the separation between Carcery and the material plane was starting to get thinner and thinner. So you had this event called the Falling Farastu, where essentially these Farastu Demodans, which are sort of these almost frog-like kind of evil outsider type creatures, just start raining down from the sky. They just appear in midair, and the first one just comes crashing down with this like wet thump and twitches before it finally dies. But then these other ones just start raining down, and eventually, like, a few of them manage to survive the fall, and then they fight from there. And then you had this one with this Culabar Demodan, which is this big, like, morbidly obese creature with these comedically tiny wings. He appeared in midair, but instead of like falling down like the Farastu, he just sort of lazily like circled and just made his way down, kind of like just gliding down. And that was a lot of fun. So overall, this was a really enjoyable adventure, and the encounter with Hookface as well, the red dragon. I think it was a lot of fun to run. He took advantage of, when they were developing the dragon here, they actually took advantage of the Draconomicon, so they included some feats and other things like Quicken Breath, and the ability to do like flyby attacks without provoking attacks of opportunity, the ability to like grab multiple creatures. So they actually, made this dragon feel more unique and gave it some more different abilities from the Draconomicon book. So it was just, again, really, really cool the way that they put that all together. And it was a really fun adventure to run. Like I said, I think if I were to go back and do this again, I would run all 4 sections in their entirety. Because, after I ran it the first time, I really spent more time just sort of looking at the way they designed the evacuation point system, and that system was something that I would use as the basis for several other adventures that I would design myself, where it was like a victory point system. And that's essentially what we had here, and even some of the events that take place here I used as inspiration when I was running an adventure in which the city of Baldur's Gate was being attacked by these marauding waves of Githyanki. And so this adventure, this really left a pretty, decent impression on me, and I would just sort of come back to some of the ideas and concepts in here time and time again. And I just, again, it was really, really well done, really enjoyable. It is a short module. Like I said, it is the shortest of the scenarios in this entire adventure path, but it packs a lot of quality into that. So again, it was a ton of fun to go through, and one of the more interesting and creative adventures that they designed for this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if any of you played through or DM'd this scenario. How did it go for you? Who did you determine was going to be the new leader of Caldron? I believe Zachary, what's his name here? When I was running it, oh yeah, so Lord Zacharias Eslaxon, he was the one that I think my players determined was going to be the new ruler, or the new leader of Caldron. But let me know who you guys determined was going to be the next leader of Caldron, what some of the events were that you encountered, and some of the hardships that you had to deal with while trying to evacuate Caldron itself. And let me know how the fight with Hookface went. In my game, he ended up getting away. After taking so much damage, he would retreat. So he managed to escape, but it was also possible that he could have been outright defeated, or even that he was able to kill one of the player characters, snatch their body, and then just fly off to his lair to strip out of his gear and eat them. So, let me know how that went, because I always love to hear some of your experiences with this adventure path. So, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and in the next installment in the Shackled City Adventure Path, the characters are going to go down beneath the streets of Cauldron to take the fight to the cage rights and hopefully disrupt the ritual of Planar Junction and stop the portal from Carcery from being opened. So I'm looking forward to that video. I'm looking forward to that installment. Hope you guys are too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you then. Take care.